Hi, I'm Tanya Lang from Peak XD, and today I want to talk to you about facilitating design thinking workshops. Let me share with you the ultimate horror story from my working career in the hope that you never have to experience what I did. Hopefully, you can learn from my mistakes. Over 20 years ago, I was recruited by a large consulting firm to conduct user research for a tourism portal and to document user requirements. I was right within my element. I'd just finished my Masters of Business by Research, exploring user behavior and how people use the internet to plan their travels. But after the initial project wrapped up, I was then thrown in the deep end. I was put on projects that I had little experience on, and I was pretty much out of my depth. It was really sink or swim. I had a little experience, and I often felt like an imposter. And we've all been there, right? It was definitely one of those character building moments. But let me tell you about the story. So one day, a senior manager came to me and asked me to run a workshop for her. All I had to do was present a few slides and get some feedback from the group of teaching staff. The objective was to get their buy-in on a new performance management process where their performance was going to be reviewed for the first time. I've been given basic training in core competencies in things like facilitation training, so I sort of went, sure, how could it be? Gulp. I had about 1 hour to get my head around a bunch of PowerPoint slides before I had to present them to a large group of pretty angry teachers and gather their feedback. These employees had never been consulted throughout the process, and it's safe to say they weren't very happy about the prospect of having their performance reviewed for the first time. So as a facilitator, I became the target of the group's anger, and I felt a bit like a punching bag. They just wanted to shoot the messenger, me, and I found it pretty hard not to take it personally because I didn't have the facilitation skills and experience to handle them. It was certainly a memorable day in my working career. So my facilitation skills and the training I received were also based on what I'd call old school workshop methods. Many of the fundamentals I learned then are still relevant now, but I really wish I knew what I know now. So what I've learned over the last 20 years as a UX consultant is that some of the traditional workshops and what we call focus groups, or talk fests as I call them, aren't simply sort of effective. They don't really effectively engage group participants to understand that problem and creatively come up with solutions. Workshops that rely on open discussions are very rarely productive, and they don't really leverage the group's expertise. So why is facilitation a core skill for managers and designers? Well, workshop facilitation is what I'd call a soft sort of core skill for designers, researchers, product managers, business analysts, business managers. If you're in one of these roles and you may need to engage customers in discovery workshops to understand attitudes, motivations, or customer journeys, more importantly, you'll need to engage business stakeholders to bring them on the journey, to help them understand the problem, get their buy-in, and be part of the solution. You can't simply create engaging customer experiences and solve business problems without the support of business stakeholders. So as a UX consultant, I've learned that one of the most effective ways to engage stakeholders is applying what we call a design thinking approach and using more creative workshop techniques rather than just a talk fest. So how are design thinking workshops different to traditional workshops? One of the fundamental differences is that we align the workshops to the design thinking process. So rather than running a talk fest where you can only hear from the dominant extroverts in the room, we use what we call creative workshop methods and gameplay techniques to really lead all the participants in a group to a common goal. So here are some of the examples of design thinking workshops that are much more effective than a traditional workshop. I cover these in depth in our Facilitating Design Thinking Workshops training course. So some of the workshops that we would do in the empathize stage, where we're trying to build empathy in that design thinking process. We might run customer journey mapping workshops with customers. We might also do an empathy mapping workshop with our stakeholders. In the define phase, when we're really trying to define the problem, we can do customer journey mapping workshops with our stakeholders after we've done that research with our customers. We can do what we call a research synthesis workshop, or also maybe a problem prioritization workshop. In the ideate phase of the design thinking process, we might run things like how might we workshops, where we're doing a lot of brainstorming and trying to get out of our box in terms of our thinking. We might also do other types of ideation brainstorming workshops. And we might also then do ideas prioritization workshops. In the prototyping phase of the design thinking process, we might do things like concept cards to take those ideas and tease them out a little bit further. We might also do a collaborative design, or sometimes we call it a co-design workshop. And we might even do techniques such as Crazy 8 workshops. And then finally, in the test phase, in the design thinking process, in terms of workshops, we would typically do the workshops after the testing with the customers. We might then run a solution design workshop to work through the issues collaboratively with all of the key players in the room, including technical, business, the customer focus. And then we might also do ideation workshops, again, post-testing, to go back to the drawing board and ideate solutions. So these are some of the workshops that we run through the design thinking process. And we talk about these in our Facilitating Design Thinking Workshops training course, and also our remote design thinking workshops training course. Now, I want to cover some of the tips for organising and facilitating a successful design thinking workshop. When workshops go pear-shaped, it's usually because they haven't been well planned, properly prepped, or the wrong attendees are present. I recommend a 5-phase approach to running successful workshops. First of all, 1, plan. We want to make sure, what are your workshop objectives? What are you trying to achieve as a group? What are the methods that you're going to use? Think about the different possibilities, all the different creative workshop methods. Who are you going to invite? The attendees. Where are you going to hold it? Is it going to be in person? Is it going to be remote? How long are you going to make it? What's the date, the time, some of the logistics? So really plan out your workshop well. Number 2 is invite. Think about how we might get participants to attend. We want to make sure we get the right stakeholders to that event. So pay attention to your invitation wording. Don't just outsource it to an admin person. Number 3 is prepare. Prepare your materials. Reconfirm all the details the day before. On the day, allow at least 30 minutes to set up, and always set up your technology first, because it's the thing that will fail and takes time to fix. And if it can go wrong, it will. Number 4, run the workshop. Ensure you open and you close that workshop properly. In the opening, you have a welcome, an icebreaker activity, acknowledge the traditional custodians of the land. When discussing topics, think about why people are asking questions. It may not be what you think. Maybe they're trying to trip you up or show how smart they are, for instance. Try to manage difficult participants. I've got a few tips I'll share with you shortly about that. And make sure you manage your time effectively and agree on the next steps at the end of the workshop. And number 5, we want to collate and communicate. So we want to ensure you collate and distribute workshop outputs to attendees and acknowledge their contribution, so they're not left sort of wondering, what now? Now, I want to share with you a few tips for dealing with difficult participants. I cover this in depth in our course, and I'll go into it in a lot more detail. But here are a few just quick tips to help you if you're about to run your own workshop. Now, what we call flakes. Now, remember, there's no dumb ideas in theory. Occasionally we get some interesting ideas. So if we get ideas from people that we're like, yeah, that's a good one, we don't want to put them down. So we want to validate their interesting idea, and we maybe want to ask the group for their other ideas, or pull out any ideas of that element that may be good. We might have babblers who just keep talking, you don't really get what they're saying. So you want to paraphrase back to them and confirm what they're saying. Or if you really can't work that out, maybe ask them to summarize in a few key words what you want to write up on the board, just to make sure you get it right for them. We might have what we call private chatterers, people who are sort of, either having side conversations, which could be on topic or could be about their weekend. So we want to politely call them out, maybe ask them to hold on to their thoughts and listen to the speaker. Or if they're having private conversations, my favorite little trick is just sort of stand behind them while you're focusing your attention on someone who's talking in the room. And just stand right behind them. They'll feel your presence, and often that's enough just to make them go quiet. Then we have attackers. So we don't want to argue with them, don't want to argue with dominant participants, try to deflect to the group. Sometimes they might be trying to bring you down or make themselves look good. So put it back to the group. Okay, that's great. What do other people think? So don't take it personally. Then we have question askers. Now, there's a whole heap of reasons that we go into as to why people ask questions. But just in brief, think about why that person might be asking that question. It may not be what you think. And then we might have quiet introverts. So we want to use creative workshop techniques such as affinity diagramming to ensure that we get equal input from introverts and extroverts and allow also time for the introverts to process internally. So next steps, want to learn more? Hopefully these tips will give you the confidence to organise and facilitate your own workshops. But really, these tips just scrape the surface on how to engage stakeholders and facilitate effective design thinking workshops. If you're interested to learn more, I've created 2 new courses that may be of interest to you. So first of all, we have our Facilitating Design Thinking workshops. These are one-day in-person courses in some cities, such as Sydney, Brisbane, Canberra, and Melbourne. And this is where you're going to learn how to conduct in-person workshops by actually participating in one. We also conduct Facilitating Remote Design Thinking workshops. These are 4 2-hour training sessions that are conducted remotely, and they're interactive. We use tools such as Miro, and we teach you how to conduct a remote design thinking workshop. So these are 4 2-hour sessions in the middle of the day for most Australians, but you can join them from anywhere in the world. So you can learn how to conduct design thinking workshops remotely when you've got participants from all over the country or the state, and how to engage participants using some of those online collaboration tools. Hope you can join us.